are fixed now.
You sound great.
Yeah. Okay, give me a second now. I need to fix the frozen video. I'm just monitoring the chat in the meantime. I hope everything is fine for you in the audio, and I will just restart the Skype call.
When it comes to INAV, there he is.
Not streaming.
Okay, guys. Yeah, that's typical. Yeah. Okay, now I'm visible. That should be fine.
Right.
Yeah, guys, sorry for the delay. For some reason, my audio completely missed.
We've just got a frozen Steve in the video.
Yeah, now it should be me, and now I have my own echo again.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just switch to Steve to start the show, and I will see if I can fix my audio echo. Yeah, Grinder, I know I have an echo of myself. Sorry for that. Let's go switch to you, Steve.
So you're going to put a marker on this when we start?
We're starting.
It's already live.
We're already live?
Yeah, we are live.
Okay. Should I start the show now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Wing Talk. I'm your host, Steve Schlesinger, live from Chino Hills, California. I say that because the mayor lives down the street from me, and she loves it when I say Chino Hills, California. We have a huge, and I do mean huge show today, because we are talking about the most anticipated INAV probably in the last year and a half, which is version 2.6. There are a lot of cool features about it, according to Mark. So we're going to find out what they are, what they do, and why you need this. This is definitely an INAV version that you want to upgrade to. Also, today, we are going to review the brand new AR Pro. This came out from Sonic Model. It was announced about a week ago. It went on order beginning of last week, and it sold out within a day. So we're going to go over the plane, find out the strengths and weaknesses, and figure out if this is the plane that you should own. So I am joined today by my cohort in crime, all the way from Halle, Germany, Mr. Marc Hoffmann. Marc, how are you doing today?
Yeah, hi Steve. I'm doing great, and don't let me talk too much at the moment because the echo is still there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a lot of talking here in a couple minutes. So then we also have, well, actually, this is pretty much a show of technical experts and me. And so we have for Portsmouth, two guys, not just one, but two guys. I guess Portsmouth is like the hub of INAV excellence for the UK, and it's just 60 miles south of London. So if you find yourself in London, you can go on down, and Darren will take you out for a flight in one of his planes. He loves to take his planes up. Darren, what's going on with you?
Oh, it sounds like I'm taking people out on my planes. That's what's going on.
Grinder.
Yes, Pringles.
Pringles. Yeah.
No, it's all, well, apart from the weather, it's all good. Been trying to do stuff with INAV and having, fun with computers.
So this is the first day it rained in Southern California in like the last 145 days or so. So we have a little bit of rain this morning. We're pretty excited about it. I know you guys get that all the time. Someone else in Portsmouth is our very own college student, guy who is so important that the private sector said, no, Luke, you cannot go to college anymore. You need to come work for us. And, you know, in his spare time, he helps us out. It's just, this guy is absolutely brilliant when it comes to just the technical ins and outs of electronics and flight. Luke, how you doing today? Wait, you're muted. Luke's like laughing, but he's muted.
I was muted. Yeah. So right there, proof I'm not a technical expert in anything. Yeah. Yeah, it's all going good. Same as Darren, really. It's raining and horrible here, but hopefully soon we'll have some good weather and we can get flying again.
So, Mark, are we ready to talk about INAV 2.6? Are you kind of, maybe we should have Darren start off with this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if my audio
now
issue...
Mark is muted.
Oh. No, I'm not.
It's me all the
I'm
whole
not
show
muted.
Hey, I got some jokes to tell you.
Okay,
But Wait, everyone's quiet.
I'm
Yeah,
now.
I'm not muted.
Now the Skype guys are not hearing me.
Luke, it's gonna be you and me. So let's get back into what's the weather like there in Portsmouth?
Well, it's been very cold. It's not very nice. We have a good day tomorrow, but unfortunately because of that, work wants me to fly for them. So I'm going to be busy all this next week doing various bits. Probably not too much INAV stuff, but yeah.
Okay, taking planes up. And were you flying quads or planes?
I'll be flying an octocopter tomorrow.
Okay.
Doing some shakedown flights. It's quite a cool octocopter, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't get to do anything too cool with it.
So
Really
guys,
sensible stuff.
you should hear me now in
tomorrow,
Skype.
So I don't know if I'll be seeing any planes here in the next couple days. Darren,
Yes.
You've got. I was going to ask you about Mark. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go, and I just wanted to ask you about the plane you have in the background. It looks like the one right above you is a gasser. It looks like.
Oh, well, this is a 30cc petrol.
Petrol.
Yeah, a 3D hobby shop from America.
Oh, cool. So how long does that fly for?
As long as I don't crash it. I don't know. I've not actually flown it yet. I picked it up the other week, and yeah, I just thought it was some plain candy.
You know, I don't know if you got it there. I think you have a lot of petrol guys there, but we have here in the United States, there's a lot of guys who flew RC for many years and they retire or die off, and all of a sudden you got a garage full of these planes sitting there. So,
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Oh yes, okay. They hear me. I hope I am also now clear in the chat. No, it's still echoing. Shit. Okay,
So
back to you guys for
They're just
now.
gonna have to hear you twice, Mark, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Double
Okay,
the information.
So we can get into it, I guess, a little bit with Darren. What do we know about INAV 2.6? What are the key features that, or at least discuss one that you find to be pretty interesting, to say the least?
Well, what we know about INAV 2.6 at the moment, it's probably due out in November. It's waiting on the H764 target from Maytech before they actually put it out. But Pavel has put out an alpha release for sort of testing purposes and to get an early access.
Not to cut you off, but the H764 is the new graphical OSD for Maytech?
No.
The H743, and it's just a new flight control chip, an STM32.
Okay.
H743.
Oh, it's the H series. Okay, yeah. So it's the H series.
Yeah, it's the cool one that's got sort of CAN bus and all that sort of on it. So, and I think it's got the remote USB port as well. So there's a lot of cool things on it, but it's that target that's slowing down the release of 2.6.
So remote USB, what does that mean?
Basically, instead of unplug this one, instead of just having USB on the board like this,
right?
There's a plug and a cable with the USB and I believe a buzzer on a separate little board, so you can actually put it away from the flight controller, so you can maybe put it in the fuselage side, so it's easier to get USB in.
See, I didn't get that. I saw the two pieces. I was wondering what that. I thought that was just the OSD, but no, that's really cool actually. So the idea is, because that's a major gripe I have, is being able to, like, sometimes I've seen some guys who actually can side mount those onto a side of a fuselage, so you can plug it in and out easily. And that's the idea behind that, is you can plug it somewhere, put it somewhere where you can get your USB cable to easily enough, right?
Yeah. I think Corey's just said that the DFU button's also on that little breakout board, just so everything is easier to access if your flight controller's got to be put somewhere a bit more, out of the way. But it also means that if you break your USB, you can just replace that little board.
I've done that before too. Yeah, that's like one of the major gripes I have about. If you look at the F405 wing, so it always points forward. The arrow points towards where the servo wires are, and that's supposed to be at the front of your plane. But then you have your battery terminals in the back, and then so what happens is you have to take those the battery terminals over the top of the servos, or you got to flip the whole flight controller so that the arrow points to the back of the plane. That's what I do. Because what will happen with the F405 wing and probably the 722 and all the other ones is that USB cable, then that port is closer to the front of the plane, and that's easier to access.
I guess it depends on the model. If it's a pusher, the main battery lead will go over the servos. Yeah. But yeah, to be honest, I've not really had a problem. I've not actually used one of these in a plane. I've used the F411 wing, and they've been mounted. I've mounted one sideways, and the other one is the correct way round, but not really had a problem with it. I'd sort of just tuck the battery leads in. But
that F411 wing, that's one of Luke's favorites. Why do you love it so much, Luke?
I love the F411 wing. It's so compact and tiny. It's got the current monitoring on it, which I kind of feel is necessary for most of the planes and stuff that I fly. I don't see why for 90% of applications you need anything more. Yeah.
So this H series chip. So this is basically it's probably a new ARM processor that they're putting in there, and we got to keep in mind that these ARM processors they're new, but they're really old as far as the technology is concerned. This is not the same ARM processor that you find in a smartphone, so it's not a Snapdragon or something like that. But that H series is something that's probably infinitely faster than the 722s. Darren?
Sorry, I was typing on the chat. I'm not really too sure about speed. I'm guessing it is slightly better than the F765 or whatever. They got so many numbers now. But yeah, right. I think it is slightly better. It's also got plenty of memory and everything, so it can run anything. It can run INAV, RG plane, anything you can chuck on there, it can run. So It's not limited in that respect. But also the CAN bus is faster than the I2C bus, so there's other improvements.
So what does that mean in practical terms?
In practical terms, it means that the GPS can be accessed quicker and whatever else you put through it.
Oh, fantastic.
But also on the GPS, they've actually got UARTs as well, which is quite cool. So you can, if you've got like an analog or a digital airspeed sensor, you can actually wire that onto the GPS module, and then that sends all the data to the flight controller.
Wow.
So
Matex is going to do all that, sounds like.
Yeah.
Sorry, Luke, go for it.
I think one of the biggest advantages is, like I2C, it's a chainable protocol. So you can have as many things as you want on it. But unlike I2C, it's much more robust. So if you have an I2C device crash, it'll crash all of the other devices on the bus, including a flight controller. Whereas CAN bus can handle that kind of thing really well. Also, it's not so important for INAV, but CAN bus is very well certified. It's used in full-size aircraft in the automotive industry quite a lot. So it can be assured that that's never going to cause a problem.
So what you guys are saying is, like, you don't need to go out and replace all your flight controllers. If you got an F405 wing, you're happy with it, you're fine with it. But when you're ready for something new, better stuff is on the horizon.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to be replacing my F411 wings. You can't get anything that small with a current sensor, so.
F411 WSE. That's a bit smoller. But
it's got the double high board.
It has.
So, yeah.
But it has. Well, I'm only going. I think I've got the older ones. So I remember Samson said that the newer F411 wings have got a filtering on the video, but on my older ones, the video is terrible. So the amount of capacitors you've got to put in there as well, the extra height of the board probably doesn't matter that too much.
I don't know. I know that lots of people have always said about the problems with the F411 WSE and the wings having video filtering issues, but I've never had a problem. I had my original 250-gram speed plane had terrible video, but that's because I had no capacitors in the entire plane, just because not even like on the ESC. Other than that, everything I've built with it since has been fine. So maybe I just got lucky.
Maybe it was my ESC.
Hey, want to welcome back to the show, Marc Hoffmann, all the way from Halle, Germany. Mark, how's it going?
Yeah, and Brooke. Yeah.
You're kind of quiet. You need to take it up a little higher.
Yeah, okay. now it should be fine.
There we are. There we are.
That was a quick fix now. Yeah, I found the issue. It was an XSplit configuration problem. I used the wrong item instead of the correct NDI. I have no idea why that worked last time. So because it's the same configuration.
This is like Spinal Tap, where Derek Small's the bassist for Spinal Tap couldn't get out of the pod when their opening number is locked in, and they're like taking chisels and blowtorches trying to get him out of the pod.
Yeah, I just recently saw that meme picture how a programmer's workflow is handled. So it has to work. Why does it not work? How did that work before? And why does it work now? It's a programmer's workflow.
So,
yeah, okay, back to topic.
Just to be clear, when we started this whole chat thing, we had Marc Hoffmann, who didn't want to speak English because it was too confusing, and he was just like, he got really mad at us. You're making me speak English too much. And then had Darren, he wouldn't say anything. He would speak English, but he just didn't say much. Now, Marc speaks fluent English. You speak it better than I do. And we're really glad you got the audio issues sorted out, because about 2/3 of the show depends on you today. So hopefully things are worked out for you here.
Yeah, it's absolutely not stressful if you say that.
Okay, so INAV 2.6. Can we start off with smart home or safe home?
No smart home.
Safe home.
Safe home. Yeah, there are a few great new features in INAV 2.6, and there was just recently a post on our Facebook page. Where a programmer or a friend of a programmer talked about the new safe home feature. And what it can do is you predefine specific safe home positions, like for general places where you usually fly at, like fields or forest borders. And then you can set a specific home point that's not directly at your launch point, but close to your position, like in an open field or so. So just in case something happens, the plane does not circle above you and crash into a hill or into trees or whatever. That's a pretty neat feature.
Wait. So, Darren, we have an issue?
No, there's no issue. There was just one guy in the chat who asked us to speak a little bit slower for non-native English speakers. Everything is good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. We'll slow down the speaking style then.
Yeah.
So the safe home, the good example to use is you had this long-range flight where you're freaking out about. This was a mission that you had, right?
Yeah.
And then you flew very far away, and then on the way back, you could have set up points. Had the plane not have enough batteries, it would land at one of these points. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's similar to, as far as I understand it, it works very similar to the rally point function Autopilot has. In Autopilot, you can have some rally points on a route you fly. And just in case something goes wrong, you can return to that rally point instead of your home point. That's one example you can use that for. And in INAV, that's very similar. So, like, let's say you have 2 or 3 favorite flying places near a field or near a tree line or near a hill or mountain or whatever. You can predefine specific spots where the plane should emergency land, for example, or just loiter around that point in case you get a fail-safe. So it doesn't come directly back to the launch point. And you have also a range limit, so that you can predefine that the plane does not fly to a safe home point that's 100 kilometers away or so.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. Wow, that sounds great. So that is like a major feature, and I know they're talking about that. What is another big feature of version 2.6?
Yeah, I have a list here. A lot of smaller things for airplanes. like you can now tune the feed-forward value in the OSD in-flight tuning instead of the derivative value. That's just a little fix. One of the most important features for us are that you now can tune the TPA in the OSD on-screen tuning view, and also that you have now 20 adjustments instead of only 12, because Darren and I need that feature, or requested these feature changes for our OpenTX Pro model.
So the GPA Breakpoint, can you tell people what that is?
Yes, of course. The TPA Breakpoint basically changes your PID values based on your applied throttle value you have. So let's say you have tuned your airplane with a specific PIFF values for cruise flight, so it is smooth and stable in the air. And then you throttle up and you go full speed. And if you suddenly fly, instead of 50 kilometers per hour, 150 kilometers per hour, you need to lower down the PID values or PIF values to get the same amount of stabilization out of it. Otherwise, the plane could start to flatter, or if you fly very low, it could start to drift away or whatever. And this TPA value is there to adjust the PIFF values based on your throttle position. It's very similar to what copters use.
So can you now we can adjust that in real time?
Yes, you can now adjust that with the OSD in-flight adjustments while you are flying. So you can, in real time, change the value and then test how the plane behaves. If it's not enough, you can change it again, and that's very handy.
Fantastic. Okay. The biggest question I have, and this is, as you might recall, we went through this the last few months, which is we found a glitch in INAV. And that was when, if all the conditions were right, the return to home or something like that, INAV would glitch and they would go to 0 values for a second, and for a split second, and then it would go back to normal. But in that split second, it would, if you had your switch set up a certain way, it would disarm the plane. Has that been fixed?
Hopefully. I have not tested it yet with the INAV Alpha version, 2.6 Alpha I have on my test plane right now. But there's one developer, can't remember his nickname at the moment, who has looked into FrSky SBus protocol issues, and he has made some changes. And as far as I understand, that should also fix the problems we have with the accidental disarm. And we have also the other INAV developer who worked with Darren and me together, and who already brought in ideas, and he also talked with the other developers. So I'm pretty sure that should be fixed in 2.6.
Okay, Darren, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, we've put the ball out there, so we know the issue exists. So at the moment, we can, try not to make it happen by just not getting close to the RSSI limit. But yeah, the ball's really in the developers' part, and in FrSky's, and I think they are all working to get this sorted, which is brilliant.
So no news from FrSky yet?
No, not yet. Not heard anything. I need to contact them about something else, so hopefully I'll get an update with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I like flying with these little XM Pluses, and they only have a range of about 1 kilometer. And I like taking them out to about 2 kilometers. And my hobby is seeing how far I can get the plane out before it goes in failsafe and comes back. So about one of every, I'd say 50 or 60 times, I run into this issue. So to me, this is a real issue that definitely worth addressing.
Yeah. Jack, the aviator in the chat, just asked, I came to talk late. Has the H7 issues been discussed? There is still no H7 support finished, as far as I know, from the development state. So they are still working on that. But the alpha release we have right now has no H7 flight controller support at the moment.
But speaking of the H7 board, is this a board that you would... How long do you guys usually wait for a board? And this may be a better question for Luke. How long do you usually wait for a board to be out before you feel comfortable enough to put it in your plane?
I don't know. I'm quite conservative with that kind of thing. I guess maybe you could call it selfish. I would like to wait for everyone else to have plenty of failures before I risk my stuff with it. Yeah, maybe I should, take a hit for the team every now and again and go and buy the new stuff and have a few crashes with it. But as I was saying earlier, I personally don't have any real reason to want to switch to it. I may at some point go for the 743 over the F765 I have in this plane, but it's all working fine as it is. It's still on INAV 2.1 because it works fine. So, yeah, maybe.
So these numbering things. So the 765 is an older version than the 743, then, right?
No, I guess that you have the 7 series and the 4 series, the 3 and the 1 series. And then you have the H version of the 7 series and the F version of the 7 series. They're all just a bit different. The H, I think the main thing is the CAN bus support. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. By the way, we're not really pushing this whole technology that much. We don't sell enough flight controllers to push it. These things are being put into television sets and other things like that. And so, therefore, the demand for smart products is going through the roof, and that's why we're seeing all these new flight controllers. It's because other people are buying other things that use the same technology we're using. Is that right, Luke? Luke's shaking his head, yes.
Yeah. The STM32s are used on some really crazy things. We're only using them to a very small amount of their potential, particularly like the H743. It can do loads. I mean, it runs at 700 megahertz or something. That's getting close to, a single core Atom CPU that you get in your, a laptop from 2010. So, yeah, think what that can do. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. That's really insane, because then the whole technology was sold on the point that these were called microcontrollers, and the idea was like we're just going to use them for opening and closing water mains or something like that. So real simple things, turning a switch on and off, nothing too elaborate. And that was back in 2014. They had a video out of a guy talking about these microcontrollers, and he was saying 100 megahertz. You won't need anything more than 100 megahertz. You won't need anything more. And now I don't know if the CPU speed is increased as well with these chips, but they were around I think they were like 1 gigahertz, right?
What was that? The Atom CPUs or whatever, or the microcontrollers?
Microcontrollers.
Oh, yeah, some of them, I believe, go up even above 1 gigahertz. I mean, it kind of gets a bit foggy what you call a microcontroller and what you call a CPU at that point, or as I call, like a system on chip. But yeah, so some of them are very good.
Yeah, so the whole idea is like this was not necessarily a cell phone technology. This started from cell phone technology. It was an offshoot of cell phone technology. It was because the people at ARM there in the UK decided, like, we're running out of cell phones to sell around the world. We see a day when we're going to reach saturation in selling smartphones. We need to find a new market for this stuff. So they started thinking about microcontrollers, and that's why we went in this whole direction with microcontrollers. But they were never meant to be as good as they are now. And now they seem like they're not slowing down. It seems like they're just keeping going, right? And I don't know what you see going forward with these microcontrollers, Luke, but...
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually we're probably going to switch to full-on ARM chips and be running an operating system. I'm not necessarily a fan of that because you're moving away from a procedural code base to a more, I think it's called runtime decided code base, where you can have a video playing on your plane, and that's cool. But if the video for some reason takes more processing power, then maybe you don't get your servo commands going out. And there's a lot of work that has to go into making sure that things happen when they're supposed to happen. But certainly having all that power could be very cool in the future.
About the only thing I could... Go ahead.
Yeah, and keep in mind, the pure processing power is not only based on the megahertz the main CPU is working on. Like, look at the Raspberry Pi, for example. Even if you would scale up one of our flight controller CPUs to clock also at 1 gigahertz, and even if you would take 4 of them to have a quad core for 1 gigahertz, it would still be much slower on many tasks compared to the Raspberry Pi ARM processor. So that's still a big difference. You have so many core processors. You have hardware video encoder, decoder, for example. That's the reason, for example, why there are systems to use a Raspberry Pi for obstacle avoidance with a 3D camera. So the Raspberry Pi does the complete video analysis in real time, and then sends command to, for example, Autopilot to say, Autopilot, here you can't fly in that direction, only on that path. And that's how that works together. But you're still not able to do that on a flight controller directly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what Mark says. Although our stuff is getting very powerful, it is still a long way behind. I think our instructions per clock is, 2 or 3 orders of magnitude behind what they have on things like the Raspberry Pi and mainstream ARM CPUs. Yeah.
So the question I have when it comes to what you're talking about, okay, perfect, Darren. One of the questions I have is, when you look at GPS data, like you're flying in a certain direction, is it possible to load up one of our flight controllers with enough information that over the GPS terrain to know, like, you were going to an area where a building is coming up, so we need to be above the building, or a tree is, a mountain's coming up, and then 200 kilometers or 200 meters, so we need to get up to a higher altitude?
Yep.
Yeah, so that is definitely possible. That's something that ArduPilot already does. They have a terrain database that you put onto the SD card, and it's only a very, very basic terrain database. I think it's just like a mesh grid kind of thing, and it will follow the terrain. And obviously, as Mark was alluding to, if you have a companion computer like a Raspberry Pi or an NVIDIA Jetson or something, you can do a lot more than that.
If I remember correctly, ArduPilot the mesh they use has a resolution of 50 meters or so. So you have a elevation information every 50 meters in a grid. So it will be hard to avoid buildings with that information, because that's buildings are too small to find that on the mesh. But especially for hills or mountains, that works really well.
Interesting. Darren, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I've just noticed in the chat, Davey asked a question about the free Spectrum. I'm just got to remember what it is. The SRXL protocol, and if that will be in 2.6. I don't believe it's going to be, but I have seen literally yesterday or today or the day before that Pavel has put in a feature request for the Ghost protocols. And Ghost are actually recommending that Spectrum protocol. So it may be that Pavel's going to develop that very soon, but it's probably going to be after 2.6. But it should be on its way. So
Spectrum, they make some very interesting radios. They just came out with a 20-channel version of their radios, the X20, I believe they call it. And so, oh yeah, Luke's holding up a couple Spectrum radios in the background there.
Yeah, there you go.
So usually when people join the group, they start off with Spectrum radios and they end up getting into an OpenTX radio. Do you see Spectrum radios down the road here as being a realistic alternative to an OpenTX radio?
Well, it's not really the Spectrum radio. It's just the protocol. Spectrum have developed it and it's open source, but it's supposed to be a very sort of quick protocol. And from what I've heard from a couple of the Ghost videos, it's actually sort of faster or less latency than Crossfire. So that's why people are asking for it. It's supposed to be a very good protocol. The problem I've had in the past with Spectrum is brownouts and fail-safes.
Yes.
So, but I think this is pretty robust, this new protocol. But as far as Spectrum versus OpenTX, I've not used any of their really modern transmitters. I've seen like the DX8, that sort of thing, and to me, it's the power of OpenTX just blows it out the water. I've not seen the new transmitters with like the Android little tablet built in, so I don't know really what they can do. But as far as the basic transmitters go, I'd still probably go OpenTX. But
So
also,
Luke,
sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to mention the how easy it is to fix these OpenTX transmitters. Like the FreeSky, if your gimbals break, you can replace them for sort of $30-40, whereas the Spectrum stuff, you have to end up getting it sent away and then they repair it and send it back. Well, at least that's what happened to a friend of mine. He had to send it off. Spectrum wouldn't actually supply the gimbals, and so longevity in repairing stuff and using it, it's more powerful. You can repair it cheaper, so it'll always be a winner to me. But sorry, go for it.
Hey, Luke, you held up a couple of Spectrum radios. So what do you have to say about this subject? Well, you got to say something.
Yeah, there we go. I was muted. Sorry, as always.
If you hold up the radios,
yeah. So I've got a couple of Spectrum radios. I started off with Spectrum back in 2007-8, something like that. I got my Spectrum DX6i, and I then got a Spectrum DX7S, and I had that all the way up until 2016-17, something like that, when I got Tyrannus. And the entire time I had Spectrum, I hated what everybody says is the best bit about it, which is how you operate them. I thought it was so restrictive. It didn't seem particularly intuitive to me. Fine if you're just doing like a basic model setup, it's great because it's all pretty well done for you. But if you want to do anything even slightly complex, there's no real flow of how things are going through the transmitter from the inputs to the mixer to the outputs. You don't have any of that. It's so it all gets a bit messy. And now I'm using Spectrum stuff for work again, not exclusively, but just for some stuff, and I still hate it. Like, as you saw, I have two DX9s here, and they're just horrible to use.
Hey, there's an endorsement there.
But I've got to say, though, that Spectrum is probably easier to use than the cheap Futabas.
Oh,
I tried programming those and they were awful.
Yeah, I used a Futaba once, only to like help a friend, and because I was like the person that knew how to use transmitters, and no, I had no chance. That was a whole different, universe of stuff to do. Ironically, one of the
Continue.
Ironically, one of the things that most people don't like about the Spectrum, which is the brownouts and stuff, I've never really had too much an issue with. I did ultimately switch from Spectrum to the Tyrannus because I wanted to do more long-range flying, and I wanted, UHF systems and that kind of thing, which at the time was a lot harder to do with Spectrum. But up until then, I'd only actually had brownouts on the cheap orange RXs. I still, to this day, don't think I've ever had a brownout with genuine, or when I say brown, I mean any link loss, with a genuine Spectrum receiver up until, line of sight and a bit more. So, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I've started with FlySky receivers. I mean, FlySky radios. They were pretty easy to set up. You have just basic mixer things you can put into it for the switches, and that's all. And then after I switched to OpenTX, I was really happy that Darren is there to take over the thinking for me, because I still look at it like, I'm not sure, a dog looking at the moon or whatever. It's I just don't get over all these shortcuts in there, and what I have to do and what acts how. It's so complicated. Maybe my brain is not made for that.
I know there's a really good beginner series for OpenTX on YouTube, so you might want to check that out.
Really, you have to send me that link.
Following the style. Okay. So back to 2.6. Is there anything else that we need to know about 2.6? Any key features that we've didn't hit on?
Oh yeah, one very, very, very important key features. the acro mode is now shown correctly. Thanks to Darren. Yeah, so
I think that's the best feature of 2.6.
Yeah, best feature of 2.6. I agree.
Yeah, so in the future, if you are in acro mode, you won't see air anymore if air mode is enabled permanently, but it will continuously show acro mode. And I think air mode is only shown if you enable it by switch, or is it never shown again?
I'm not sure with the switch, because the part of code that changed, it didn't actually have a separate thing for air mode. It was just if air mode was enabled and it was on acro, it would show air mode, which is crazy because air mode actually affects other flight modes too. So it didn't really make sense to display it in the OSD. That's why it's now gone. And it sort of confuses people as well. The number of times we've seen posts where it's I've been in the air mode where they mean acro. So it sort of doesn't really help if you're trying to diagnose problems, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gone. But yeah, I mean, joking aside, there are plenty of other great things in 2.6 coming.
Corey Perez is asking for who has the tutorials. Yeah, of course, Darren has the tutorials in his channel. And Darren, maybe you can put the link in the chat if you want, or you can also find his channel in my recommended channels on my main page. Yeah. What else? There are a few nice things. Oh yeah, Crossfire users will love that. We will finally have the ability to show RSSI, link quality, signal to noise ratio, and the Crossfire power level in the OSD with 2.6. So no channel mapping or whatever. It's completely out of the protocol. So you can get all your Crossfire information in your OSD finally. Another nice change is especially for long range people like me who pilots that are lazy. If you use any auto throttle controlled mode like 3D cruise or also return to home, there will be now a smooth throttle control in INAV 2.6. So just slight deviations in the pitch angle will not cause sudden throttle changes up and down all the time, but it will stay at a constant rate because the developers have developed some kind of deadband in the center area. So you get a much smoother throttle behavior now in auto throttle mode.
Wow, awesome.
And what else? And yes, a really important thing. Unfortunately, I messed up my configuration here, so I can't show you can't show you that live. Maybe Darren has his OSD presentation set up ready, so he could show it.
You were saying about throwing people on the spot, Mark.
Yeah, it's a delegation, you know.
Where's the boss? I'll get under it.
Yeah, and Darren will search his setup. Maybe he can bring it ready, but you will now get a lot of plane-related configuration settings in the OSD menu, like launch settings in the INAV OSD. You can set up navigation settings in the INAV OSD, and there was one point more I can't remember right now. So this is really important because we still have no auto launch settings, for example, in the configurator. But finally, we can set up auto launch settings in the OSD directly. No need for CAI or whatsoever.
Wow.
So
I'll be with you shortly.
Darren is still getting his stuff ready. Don't rush. We have more things to talk about.
So, Mark, I got a question for you.
Yep.
Okay, so people are going to ask. Actually, it comes down to a question. I'm going to read the question. It was actually, I don't know if it's a question or a statement. This came from one of our longtime guys in the group, Graham Downs. He says, I'm still flying my FX61, which is a really cool plane, on INAV 2.3, mainly because it's dialed in and flies great. All modes work spot on, etc. I really like to upgrade to INAV 2.5 or now 2.6, but I'm apprehensive that the changes that came in 2.5, that I'll mess up my plane up and not get it flying as good along with my VTX auto power changing and global functions. I've pre-ordered the new AR Wing Pro, so maybe I'll use that.
Yes.
So 2.6.
what is his current INAV version?
2.3.
2.3. Basically, I'm not absolutely sure about the global functions and his automatic VTX switching, because there are a lot of changes from 2.3 to 2.4 and 2.5 in that area. Especially in 2.6, the global function system got a complete overhaul. It really surprised me when I saw that the first time. So I'm not 100% sure if he can take over these settings directly. But about the tuning and the flight behavior, he can take over everything from 2.3 to 2.5 or 2.6. The pit handling has not changed for planes. It's only for quadcopters. Quadcopters you need to tune from ground up for 2.6. But for wings that shouldn't matter. And also all the mode stuff. For the modes, there was a little tool from the developers to translate the modes into the new format. In the INAV 2.5 changelogs, there's a link to that tool, how to do that.
Okay.
So these are the only things he has to look for.
So one of the questions I have for you is like a lot of people maybe don't have INAV set up quite this intensely, but you've been around since INAV, I think 1.7, 1.8, somewhere around there.
It was INAV 1.9, I think, was just out when I started with everything.
Okay, 1.9. I thought, was it INAV 2.0 that had the major redo on the whole fixed wing? You had to redo your whole code base because that was a quantum leap from 1.9 to 2?
You can't really make that up on the version numbering. So yes, INAV 1.9 to 2.0 was a big change as far as I remember. It's already 3 years ago or so. So it's everything is changing so fast. It's hard to remember, but it's not that big. I think the biggest jump I have seen during the INAV development was from 2.2 to 2.3 back then. There was a really, really big jump, if I remember correctly, in features and all that handling in the background. Right.
Okay. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking is like, once you get to version 2.3 and above, it pretty much INAV is going to fly. There's some minor features, but INAV pretty much flies the same, right?
Yeah, it pretty much flies the same. So it was still an PIFF controller since 1.7. So there were no big changes back then in the flight characteristic, especially. I mean, you got some new features like the navigation smoothing, so you get smoother starts and ends of banks, for example, in angle mode or in navigation modes. There are some additional features, but if you don't touch them, you can just take over the settings and everything will fly as before.
So with INAV 2.6, the reason we're telling people to upgrade is there's a lot of small, refined features in INAV 2.6 that they'll appreciate, especially if you are worried about the glitch, that will be handled.
Yeah.
As far as we know.
It's mainly background stuff, like a lot of fixes, as I taught before. The part for fixed wing, especially for flying features, is really small, just a few minor things. So INAV 2.6 has a big focus on multi-rotors again. I mean, we had 2.4 and 2.5 that was mainly focused on fixed wing. So let's get the multi-rotor pilots something to play around with.
Fantastic. All of a sudden, Darren Lines has gone black. I see a screen. Darren, say something so we can see what we're looking at here.
Okay, well, that's just the OSD. But what I would just like to add is, if you are worried about updating, you can always do a diff all, save that to a text file, and then if you don't like it, you can go back to the older versions. But also, if you do update, please check out the release notes, because there have been some big changes that you need to do to upgrade. So, for example, going to 2.5, you needed to redo the flight modes. They have new numbers now, but there's tools to help do all this sort of stuff. But from 2.3 to 2.6, there will be a few steps that you need to do to perform the update and everything work well. So just please read the release notes, and that will take you through the whole process.
Cool. Thank you for that. All right. So let's take a look at the screen you're looking at here. I see a black screen. It looks like a PID tuning menu on OSD.
Yeah, this is the INAV OSD. So when Mark finishes closing his window, we'll find out what he wants to look at, because this is running 2.6, and this is running the new alpha release.
Wow.
So there's going to be some new features in there, but to be honest, I've not really boned up on this bit, so I'm going to have to wait for Mark to get back.
We'll find out together. This is awesome.
We will.
Luke, say anything you want to. You can jump on in at any point.
I'm not really sure I have too much to say. Oh, I do have a thing to say. A feature I want in INAV is a way that we can just display any custom value on the OSD. So it's not, a temperature or a speed or anything like that. It's just a number that you can display on the OSD, and that number may come from a RC input channel, or maybe an RC input channel with a function of something else.
You can.
I think that would be quite useful. You can do that.
In 2.6.
In 2.6 you can do that.
There's a lot more. Sorry, I'm going to switch back for a sec, because otherwise it's just staring at a screen. Right. So in 2.6, there's a lot more for the logical conditions and the global functions programming side of things coming. So there's extra variables that you can use. But one of the things that I actually requested was to view the global variables on the OSD. So the first four global variables you can actually put on your OSD, and anything that's in the logical switches you can output to those variables. So that would be RC channel, distance to home,
I guess I take
whatever.
back what I was saying about I want INAV to implement that then.
It's there now.
Should have looked at the release notes more carefully.
To be fair, that was only added probably last week.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the thing with 2.6, where we're waiting for this H74. I'm going to get the number wrong again. Where we're waiting for that, there's quite a few small fixes that are actually still going through. So after this video, there's a good chance we'll actually get more stuff added going forward into the final release. So it's actually quite cool that we're waiting, because there's all these little things that are getting tidied up while we're waiting for the target. Okay, right, I'll switch back. What do you want to see, Mark?
Yeah, just show some of the new OSD menus, especially under features.
Okay, so
there there you have the mixer servos. Oh, that's even newer than my alpha. I think the alpha don't has that.
Yeah, this is the alpha.
That's the alpha from Pavel.
Yes.
This is alpha beta.
Okay, so I've not looked at all menus. I never realized that menu before. So yeah, it's even better. You can adjust the mixer to change the throws in the field without a computer.
Well, it looks like you can even change the platform. So it's verging on being able to set your model up without actually having a computer.
Yeah, can you look at these servo mixers?
Yeah, sure. So we've got helicopter, tricopter, rover. So yeah, you could actually set up your full mixer.
Yeah, and the submenu servo mixer, how does that look?
There we go. That's a motor mixer.
Motor, throttle, roll, pitch. Yeah, motor mixer and servo mixer.
So yeah, you can just choose obviously the servo.
Yeah, so you can select the servo and then set up what the servo does. That's really amazing.
Yeah, so weight, speed. So everything you can do in configurator is in the OSD menu.
Wow.
Yeah, so if I now see that mixer menu, as I said, I have not realized that before. I was in the navigation setup menu and the auto launch menu before. But you can basically set up your whole plane without a computer.
Yeah. And the output as well. So you can set the midpoint and the endpoints. So yeah. And the rate, I'm guessing that's the total throw. So that could be set up to 120 to boost the output of the servo. So that's basically the output screen for servos.
Okay,
Wow.
so that will be my next challenge with my test platform. I for sure will just flash that flight controller and then completely try to set it up through these OSD menus. No, I have to set up the receiver before I can
LEDs,
use the module.
Yeah, you have to set up the receiver.
Yeah,
and your ports.
Yeah, of course. So it doesn't completely work out. Yeah, but as you can see, there's a lot going on in this configuration menu, in the OSD menu. Not only that, you can now basically fully tune the plane in flight with the setup Darren and I have developed. You can also change so many settings in the field now without Bluetooth, without USB connection, whatever. That's really great.
Speedy Bee aren't going to be happy though. Yeah, everything for return to home as well. So that's really handy.
Jack the Aviator just asked in the chat, so it looks like you could possibly set up differential thrust based on yaw, or am I jumping to conclusions? No, that's absolutely true. You can use differential thrust, but that's in INAV since 4 or 5 years now. So
yeah, I think that was improved in 2.5. I think
yes.
Pavel worked on that quite a bit.
Yes, the problem in the past was with...
do you see that auto launch?
Yeah. In fixed ring settings, you have the auto launch, yeah. So Darren, you need to say something.
Yeah.
It has switched to Steve.
Yeah, Steve's taking the screen away.
Yeah. So here you have all the auto launch settings. You can easily change in the field. So if your auto launch is a little bit twitchy or doesn't work very reliable, you can just change the settings on the fly. It's really nice.
Quite handy, because if you run a plane with 2 different battery setups, you can change the launch throttle here depending on what battery you're using.
Yeah, indeed. But I have to say, I would like to have the launch settings together included in the profile selection.
Yes, yeah.
That would be much more handy.
Oh, yeah.
So VTX has been there a while.
What was it about the black box? Is that just to turn it on and off, or is there actually reading data from the black box?
It's just the rate and to turn it on or off.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, and there's a great tutorial about the LED strip. I happen to know it just came out recently for INAV. Like, I spent quite a bit of time working on it.
I don't know. I've heard it's rubbish. Yeah, I mean, it's something that there's a lot of people have asked about. So why not show how to do it? Let's help people. That's what this hobby should be about.
Fantastic. Cool. That is really that's amazing.
I've got something a little bit unrelated. But is there a way now in INAV with the global variables and that kind of thing to have your trim switches pass through as channels and then be applied as normal trims would be if you're just using a receiver to your midpoints in INAV?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's all I want.
That as a feature request. So yeah, it's hopefully something that might get looked at. Apparently there's quite a few sort of slightly technical issues with it, but it is a feature request and there has been some activity on it, so hopefully in the future, because that was something Steve and I were discussing for the line of sight INAV model, OpenTX model, and one of the things was that people coming from line of sight, they're used to flying, they're used to trimming manually, but they still want to have the stabilized stuff. Otherwise, what's the point in putting the flight controller in the first place? So, I mean, at the moment, you could go around manually trim it, land it, stick it in the servo auto trim, which and then sort of save it and all that. It would be nice if it was just like a shorter way of doing that, to save sub trims straight to the, like Vector has a nice sub trims save. But yeah, it's definitely something that's hopefully in the pipeline.
Yeah, I'd prefer just get away from auto trim completely. I think I and most other people are quite capable of just doing the trims ourselves, and then, you know, it's all done and sorted.
I mean, I'm not sure right now. Do we have servo midpoints in the adjustments? I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't think there are.
Darren, you are still showing the OSD menu, by the way.
Yes. Are we done with that?
I've just seen a Blackie's comment about that should be configurable in the OSD menu, and that was what made me remember it. But I specifically want it to be in flight. I want it so I can do it while I'm flying, to tune it or to trim it how you trim a normal plane.
Yeah, so in the OSD menu you can set the midpoint, but you can't do that while you're flying.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if they did an OSD menu with a transparent background, but then it's still not as easy as doing it with just the trims. That's what they're there for on the transmitter, after all.
But I mean, in general, shouldn't we always completely avoid changing the trims in software? Because you still lose resolution in one direction of the servo if you change the midpoints in software. It's always better to have the trim as good as possible on the mechanical side.
I completely disagree. For example, with an elevator on a plane, you may want no down travel for whatever reason, or very limited down travel, but lots of up travel. In that case, to get the best resolution, you actually want to have your midpoint be at 1800 microseconds, for example, rather than 1500.
But you can do the same also mechanically. If you put the servo horn in the back, for example, in that angle, your elevator is here, you only have a very low down pitch, but very high authority up.
Yeah, but that will give you a mismatch of resolution and non-linearity between going up and going down.
Okay, that's a good point, but I have to say this is a really, really rare use case, I would say.
Yeah, the more applicable thing for me is like planes drift over time, and I don't want to have to adjust the mechanical setup just because I left it in the hot car for 5 minutes too long today. So that's the thing that's more important for me, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stabilizer, the acro mode, the PIV controller does compensate for any slight offset of the trim anyway. Of course, for people who fly mainly manual, I can absolutely understand that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. A lot of my planes, in fact, only last week with Darren, I was flying my Fun Jet, which I have an INAV board.
Video.
What's that?
You say flying.
Oh, yeah, not much flying was going on there. No, it was
rocketing.
It was one throw, and that was it. Not much. Not a big crash or anything, but it just kind of skid along the floor. Anyway, I just have the flight controller in that, so I can get telemetry back from it. I don't even have the servos going through it for this exact reason, because I don't want to have to worry about auto trim and that kind of thing. I just have it on there so that I can send D-shot commands to the APD ESC that requires D-shot, and so I can get GPS speed, current, all of that kind of thing back to my transmitter. It'd be really nice if I could instead use like an RXSR receiver and have normal trim setup and that kind of thing.
A few people in the chat just realized, like Davey Orr, damn, my SpeedyB has just become obsolete. I don't think so. I mean, yes, you can use a lot of settings on the INAV OSD right now. That gets very handy just to make small adjustments. But you have still so many more things you can set up with the SpeedyB app. You can also use a Bluetooth module on the flight controller itself, like for uploading waypoint missions, changing your. We talked about that before. Your safe home positions, for example. You still need an USB connection for that. And the big advantage of a SpeedyB adapter is still you don't have to power your whole setup. You don't have to power the ESC, the VTX, the camera, and everything together. You just plug in the USB with the battery, and that's it.
Well, I just still think that if we can get to a point where we can get, the old-time pilot, if they can get into INAV and fly their plane like they always have, which is by setting trims manually, there'll be a whole new segment of the population we can get to with INAV, which would be kind of fun to have those people involved. The idea is that the telemetry can be brought back to the radio so they would know. And trust me, as a line of sight pilot, we've all been in before. It's like, hey, where's my plane? And then like you're shaking, turning it and whatever, you're looking for it way off in the distance. It'd be great to look down the radio and see, okay, I need to turn the plane around and I could bring it back this way and I can bring it back home. Or I could try and return to home, or I can use all the flight stability features. So that's one of the big selling points of doing this. But the powers that be at INAV developers to actually get to this. So, Mark, is there any other big things about 2.6?
No, I think the OSD was the last thing on my list we could talk about. Okay. If Darren doesn't has anything special discovered in 2.6, maybe you have played around it with it a little bit more than I have.
I mean, all I've really got actually is your list here. I'm just looking at. So the points that we've not covered, just in case there's anything you want to bring up, there's the conditional mixer for PIDs and VTOL.
Yeah, I skipped that for a reason. Just yesterday in Pavel's live stream, I have asked him about that. Yes, there are some things you can do with the logic functions and to change some mixer things, but it's still very, let's say, experimental. So you have still fiddle around and try to get some VTOL transition stuff working, and it's still very, very strongly relying on the pilot skills. Like you don't have the possibility to have a smooth transition between different mixers, for example, and all that stuff. So it's not ideal for VTOL yet. Tail sitter is fine, but a VTOL with tiltable motors that needs a smooth transition because you have to accelerate before you turn off your hover motors, it's still hard to do.
VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's the reason why I skipped that point and don't want to go into detail yet at this point.
So I actually have an INAV VTOL plane that I set up back in INAV 2.0, I think it was, and I just set it up as a normal plane, but where it thought that, you know, the calibration was wrong, so it thought that level was facing upwards, and then when I want to fly in forward flight, I just switch it to manual mode.
What I thought about, I have that idea. I would. On Monday or Tuesday, I get a Sonic model Sky Hunter Racing. And my idea was to build a micro VTOL, as small as possible. And I mean, that's a really small plane. You don't have much space.
It's not smaller than my one. My one was an E-Flight Expert.
Oh, okay.
That's tiny.
Okay. Yeah, and I have an idea to put two motors on the rings for pure vertical power, and make a 2-axis tilt motor on the back. I have an idea how I will build that. It should work, I hope. One servo will come into the fuselage and turn axis to tilt the motor for the tricopter hover flight. And my idea was to just use the back motor that's pointed down on a 3-position switch. The up position is for hover flight. The middle position then will put the back motor just in a 45-degree angle. It should still be enough to hover at this angle, but it also accelerates the plane forward. And if I think it's fast enough, then I just make the full transition, turn off the hover motors in front, and go completely horizontal with the back motor to switch to, horizontal flight. I hope that works. That's just my idea.
I think my only suggestion there would be to not worry about the 45-degree mode. I think you're most likely better off just, pitching the plane down a bit and letting it gain speed after you've transitioned. I doubt you'll...
I would like to gain speed without losing altitude. Like a rear VTOL does. I mean, of course, I could just climb up to 100 meter and then instantly switch and then just go into a dive to gain speed. That's good. Also, is also possible. Yeah. But then the transition back to hover yeah, okay, it would be the same. Yeah,
It's
it just would stop.
because it's the other way around. It's fine. Yeah.
But it should look at least kind of smooth.
You just want it to be cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay, yes, that's all for 2.6, I think.
Fantastic. Well, then it is time for the moment we've all been waiting for, and that is the brand new, AR Wing Pro. But really, we should talk about this, and I'm going to get into my gripe first and foremost, which is, and this will set the whole pace, which is kind of the underlying comment we get is, why do you guys talk about the AR Wing so much? I mean, why? And people accuse us of like we're taking money from Sonic Model or something like that. The reality is that we're trying to recommend planes that we like and we know and we have faith in. So this turns into my gripe, and it has to do with the AR Wing itself. And that is, I'm going to use another analogy. You guys have pizza restaurants in Germany, right?
Yeah, plenty here in the city.
Okay. And you have them also in the UK, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
We sure have pizza restaurants.
Okay, so when you're going into a town and you were saying, I want to open a pizza restaurant up, don't you go into the town and start eating at all the other pizza restaurants in town to seeing what they have to offer? And then when you go to that one pizza restaurant where there's a line out the door, and back in the pre-COVID days, isn't that the restaurant that you pay attention to? And then you try the pizza out and you say that this is the gold standard as far as the pizza in this town is concerned. And I have to make a pizza at least this good, if not better. Otherwise, I shouldn't open a shop here, or I should figure out how to do this. I mean, that's really the only two scenarios you have. That this is the standard, the gold standard. And so the idea that when I was thinking about the AR Wing is like, this wing is probably about 3 or 4 years old now. And we're still talking about it. It's like the hottest thing out. And why aren't we talking about this? Like, that plane is so, you're still flying an AR Wing. That's so like 4 years ago. Things should be so much better than that now, but they really aren't. So my biggest criticism is that the only competitor that Sonic Model had to improve the AR Wing was Sonic Model with the AR Wing Pro. And why is it not that we're not seeing really good competition where you have, I mean, the AR Wing, less than $100 if you buy the kit, it's molded EPP, it's a fantastic plane. But I mean, this thing had been torn apart. They should have figured out the weaknesses a long time ago and come out with at least 3 or 4 solid competitors. We're not seeing that.
Okay, let me jump here in at this point. In my opinion, the AR Wing is not superior at all against specific other planes. The main point the main point, in my opinion, that makes that one a very, very special plane is that it can just kind of do nearly anything. You can fly long range, you can fly fast, you can fly acrobatic. On every specific discipline, there are other planes that are definitely better. An F1 Wing or an Funjet is for sure way faster with the same power. A mini drag or Rafax, for example, is way more stable than the AR Wing, and I would say an S800 or what is a good acrobatic wing?
Acrobatic wing, what's that?
Yeah, it's something that's very agile and fast. Or, like
something that's very agile.
Yeah, these are real acrobatic planes. Yeah. No wings here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but you get what I mean. I mean, I think that's the point. The AR Wing just can do a lot of stuff. It can do that stuff well, but not perfect. But the price point compared to what it can do, it's just unbeaten at the moment, in my opinion. So what do the others say to that?
Yeah, I was like waiting for Luke. Luke, you got anything to? Have you flown the AR Wing before?
I've never flown an AR Wing. No. I had an S800. But yeah, the S800 is the only flying wing I've ever bought. And other than that, I've flown quite a few flying wings, but all that I designed and from 6, 7, 8 years ago. Unless you count things like the Fun Jet as a wing, but I think we decided they're not wings, they're
planes.
They're planes. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I'm not a particularly big wing fan, mainly just because most wings are pushers. I'm not a fan of pushers because they make a lot of noise, and it means you can't go and fly them at the local park and close to people. Well, not close, but you don't. It's hard. It's easier to disturb people, harder to be discreet.
You should get a .250G. It's really quiet.
Yeah, but it's still louder than.
No.
Where is it? Than that one.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? Maybe not.
On 3S with the 3-inch prop, you can't hear it anymore if it's more than 50 to 100 meters away. You can't hear it anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had been saying I do want to get the AR Wing Mini just because I think for 60 quid or whatever it is, ready to fly, that's quite impressive. Yeah. I think the reason I didn't want to go for the Dart 250G is because if it's a plane I'm going to have in the car all the time, I want it to be very durable. Yeah, maybe I'll have to go for it.
The Mini is really durable.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah.
This thing has
sorry, that one, not the Dart. Yeah,
that's gone nose first into the gravel at Brown Down from about 60-70 meters at
I think I saw you do one of those on Sunday, so
falling with style.
Yeah. No, this I've glued together a few times, but it's still absolutely fine. Even the cheap crappy motor is still working fine. But no, for just something cheap to leave in a car and fly whenever, they're brilliant. I mean, I had the Nano Goblin, and that's a really good plane, but it's a different plane. But yeah, that's for the money. You can't go wrong.
So just to get to the point, I think Steve just wanted to refer to that Sonic Model just has announced the new AR Wing Pro. And that's what we would like to talk about. What has changed? What is the possible difference to the previous AR Wing generation? And everything we will talk about now is just guessing because no one of us has the plane yet. Okay, so yep.
Go ahead. What is the thing that has attracted you to the plane in particular?
For me personally, I love to fly long range. I love to fly cruising around, also low altitude cruising, whatever. And from just the pictures I have seen, I think the AR Wing Pro will be better at this than the previous generation. The wing shape has changed. It's a completely flat bottom wing, so it has a ton of lift. You can put big batteries in there. Sonic Model says the max recommended takeoff rate is 1,425 grams. So for a 1 meter wing, that's already massive. And I have a Gpa 2 here with about the same size. And if you load that one up with 1.45 kilograms in total, you get a really hard time to launch it. So I'm really curious already how that will work out on the AR Wing Pro. Especially, they say the plug-and-play version rates about 500 grams empty. So basically you have 925 grams to play around with electronics and battery. So even with the DJI HD system in there, and let's calculate with 150 grams for all the electronics, flight controller, GPS, VTX receiver, and the DJI Air unit, you still have maybe 700, 750 grams to play around with. Just for the battery.
That's like a 20 amp battery for a LiPo then, right? 10 to 20 amp.
I mean, the 10,000 milliamp hour lithium ion pack from ZOHD I have here is at exactly 600 grams. So there is still headroom.
Wow, okay.
Is that a 10,000 milliamp hour 6S, you said?
No, 4S.
4S, oh, okay.
And it was what's also great that they have switched from the scrappy, I think that are Racer Star motors they used before.
Yes. Yes.
And they finally switched from these crappy Racer Storm motors that burn up as soon as you just look at them to genuine Sunny Sky motors. And the motor is 1400 kV 2216. Yeah, 2216. So that should give a good amount of power, not very high performance, but a good amount of power and high efficiency.
So as long as you're talking about that, let's hone in on that for a second here. Would you, if you're spending your own money to buy this, would you buy the kit or would you buy P&P?
That depends. I would say for me, the AR Ring Pro will replace my long range AR Ring setup, most likely, if it's as good as I hope. And then I will stay with the plug and play setup. So 40 amp ESC, the motor is just fine. It will be a good long range setup. Maybe I will play around with different props, but the motor is just what I would select for that plane. And if I would like to go into speed cruising, like I usually do with the Rafax or other people do with the Mini Drag, then of course you should get the kit version and put a stronger motor setup in there. I mean,
so Darren,
just the last point. I mean, Sonic Motor has also already noted that the plane, just as it is, with the enforced ailerons, the carbon in the rings and everything all together, is capable to handle speeds up to 220 kilometers per hour without any change in the without any modifications. I mean, I hope that will keep up with that.
So we always love putting Darren on the spot. And this is the second time today we've been put him on the spot. And I was hoping that you could pull up. You did a great video presentation and showed like the 3 different things from the Sonic Model website, and you were kind of going over the key features of it. I was hoping like maybe you can pull those up. I'm asking Mark another question, and then be able to show the features off, and kind of give an overview of the plane itself.
Yeah, could I just add one thing about the kit versus P&P argument?
Yes.
See, at the moment, if I was to buy one, I'd get the kit just because I got a load of stuff here. But they've also hinted at another motor configuration with a T motor, and it would be interesting to see what that actually, the specs of that is. So it's got to be different to a 2216 1250 because that's what the other one comes with, or 1400, whatever it is. So it'd be interesting to see what the actual T motor kit's like, because that may be more aimed at going quicker. So maybe it's a bigger motor with a high kV, but yeah, it's another unknown, which is quite cool. But
I have a guess here. I think they might go for the same motor I have on the Rafax right now, and that's a T motor AS2317. It can handle about 45 or 47 amps continuously, as far as I know, and it has about the same power as the RB, as the Racer Star RB. It's about the same power level. It's just a guess, but I would bet on that they go for that motor, and it's not too expensive too. And as they already sell the basic powertrain as a complete kit with servos, with ESC and motor separately, I think you will be able to easily upgrade later. If you just get the plug and play version, you're not happy with the performance, you can likely just get the upgraded motor setup later.
So one point you brought up was that this has an all-up weight potentially of up to 1.5 kilos, and this is still, it's a 1 meter wing. That, if you think about it, that's an awful lot of weight. And you were talking about taking off. I worried about failed launches and also landing with something that heavy and that small. Wouldn't that damage the airframe?
You mean in crashes or in speed flight?
Speed flight. Well, in order to get that kind of, you're flying a plane that weighs 1.5 kilos. That's a lot of weight. That's what, about 3.5 pounds, and something that's 1 meter. So what what I'm concerned about is that if you come in hot with that plane, because you're going to be flying that plane fast in order to get it going, isn't that going to be prone to getting damaged on landings?
Yes and no. I mean, we still don't know how the airframe will actually behave. So in the presentation Darren just brings up, they say that the minimum stall speed, or the minimum speed it can fly, is at 31 kilometers per hour. But I think that's with a small battery. Yeah, as I said, it depends on the airframe. Maybe even with 1.4 kilograms, it has a stall speed less than 40 kilometers per hour. We have to check that as soon as the plane arrives. We can't say at the moment.
Okay, so Darren has pulled up his desktop. Can you put that up, please?
It is worth noting that even if it does land quite fast, as long as it's a smooth landing, you shouldn't do too much damage. It's only really going to be a problem in crashes or in bad landings, which, you know, obviously it's going to have its fair share of, but...
Okay, so Darren, are you there?
I am. I just realised I did a Luke and my microphone was muted. Yeah, no, we don't land badly. We're professional pilots.
Yeah, professional pilots only here. No bad landings.
Right, so what would you like to see?
Well, first thing, I'm looking at this photo and I see a folding prop, and then I brought this question up. Do you want to put a folding prop on this plane and talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the folding prop?
Okay, I want to say something here. I think as long as the folding prop is set up correctly, and you're happy paying the little bit of extra money for a folding prop, there's no reason not to go with one. Wow.
Darren?
I personally wouldn't bother. I'd just put motor brake on it and just use a standard prop.
Yeah, I wasn't saying there was necessarily any advantage, but I don't think there's any disadvantage either.
No,
I wouldn't do it from a braking prop perspective, more just an efficiency perspective. But
balancing additional drag at the prop hub at high speeds and limited RPM. These are three disadvantages every folding prop has. I've never seen a fixed prop yet exploding. Unless you really go nuts and move it with and spin it with Mach 2 or so. But I've seen
counter that.
I have seen so many folding props exploding. Oh, by the way, I have just fixed the view to Darren, so the picture from Darren's screen will stay in focus.
I'll counter that with I've exploded lots of fixed props. In fact, I exploded one not too long ago in testing with the Funjet since last weekend, and conversely, I've had lots of folding props quite recently that I've put up to 7 kilowatts of power through an 8-inch folding prop, and they're fine. So
I was going to say there's plenty of F5B pilots that will argue that folding props are absolutely fine.
Well, all of the most high-power RC planes you can find, F5B, F3S, they all use folding props. Actually, largely for durability in terms of how much power they can take, because it's actually easier to make molds for better load distribution for a folding prop than it is for a fixed prop. Okay,
for our chat right now, please, everything who is watching right now, post a comment: folding or fixed prop. I want to see what the chat thinks about that.
I know they're all going to say fixed, but I approve.
I'm arguing for folding, but I would definitely put a fixed prop on it. I'd just set the motor brake so it was strong enough to stop it, but weak enough just to get it in line with the body. Then you got nice efficiency.
I agree with Darren.
Half a price.
Mark. Yeah. But you know what's great about this is when we used to do these the first few of these wing talks, we would, when the show was over, we would talk afterwards, and this is exactly how we talked. We'd sit there, talk over each other, and we disagree actively, and this was I'm like, guys, why can't you put this on the show? So thank you so much for at least going here and disagreeing.
So,
But at the end of the day, they're all valid points. There's just different arguments.
No,
for
all
either
of Mark's
side.
points are invalid. Sorry.
I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so before we go on from this page, we should give a shout out for Painless 360. This is the one thing I will say that is really cool about this plane. It was that, as far as I can tell, a lot of these manufacturers, they get absolutely no input from the end user community as to how well the plane performs. With what Sonic Model did is they put out a video last week showing that they had upwards of like 14 different prototypes of this plane, and they kept working with it. And then they went to Lee at Painless 360, and they said, hey, check this plane out, let us know what you think, give us your feedback. So that's why this plane is so great, is because they actually listen to the community. So
Yeah, 100%. I wish more manufacturers would do that. At the end of the day, it can only do good things for them, is getting feedback from people who go out there and fly them. So it's a no lose situation for the manufacturers. It's just to send an email out to someone saying, what do you think of this idea?
It's fantastic. We need more of that in the industry. Hey, I was going to say, the only thing I don't like about the plane is that I'm not really fond of those graphics. That's about the only. The black and white checkers were like really cool. Mark, are you going to say something?
Yeah, just let's continue with the pictures, I would say. So when we talk about things we don't like about it, I mean, I already taught a lot of stuff I like about it, but that focus on the DJI digital FPV system. I'm personally not a big fan of it. Mostly because I just have no use for it at the moment, and this AR Ring Pro is so much focused on the DJI system with that mount on top, where they unfortunately forgot the antenna clamps, whatever, because you have to fix the antennas, otherwise they just fell off or they just fall down onto the fuselage. The small nose cover, I like that the nose is now pinpointed for better aerodynamics and more efficiency, but it's really hard to mount a GoPro in there. I have no idea how they want to fix a GoPro Session, for example, because the strap goes from the front to the back. And even if you put a GoPro in there, there is no protection at all. So it's completely freely in the front. If you crash that plane, you will definitely smash up your GoPro. And these are a few things I absolutely don't like on that design.
So this plane's really a sales for the GoPro insurance package.
They should bundle it, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, with the nose, it would be brilliant. I mean, they've obviously got it here with the DJI system, but if you can fit like a Runcam 2 style camera in that nose too, that would be perfect, I think. Nice, it'll keep the sleekness, the aerodynamics there, and yeah, it's well protected.
I have to admit, I don't know why I thought this, but I just kind of assumed that they were providing multiple canopies and multiple noses so they had one for the DJI, one canopy for the DJI and one canopy for without, and one canopy for a GoPro, one nose for a GoPro and one without, something like that. Maybe not.
I think there are 3 noses that I've seen.
2.
There's a solid one. There's the one with the DJI small hole in the front. Actually, no. And the other for the GoPro, it's just no nose. You just basically take the foam off, and then you got the plywood board to stick it to. Yeah.
So only 2 nose adapters. I've talked to the.
Yeah, I see them now.
Yeah, okay. I've talked to the Sonic Model guys, and their guess was that if you need a custom nose, you just use the full nose without any cam opening in there, and you cut your own adapter.
That's fine with me, I think.
Whatever you need. But at the end, I think if you use different cameras, for example, I have a Runcam 2 I like to use if the plane should be lighter, for example, to have more headroom for bigger batteries. And sometimes I use my GoPro on my planes. Then I have a problem because I only have one foam nose and I don't want to order a bunch of them and then try to cut it out. So what we or what I asked them for, and it's not finally decided yet, if they can supply us with the STL file of the blank nose, and based on that STL file, we can just create our own perfect fit nose adapters for any camera we want. And yeah, I hope they will do it, and I will get the information about that very soon.
Hey, I just noticed something about the plane, and I didn't realize this. I had to look at the old AR wing. Take a look at where the motor is mounted. You can see how it kind of has a bump that comes out where the motor mount is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
That'll be
That's
quiet.
quite useful. Yeah, makes it quieter.
Fantastic.
Still not as quiet as it should be, you know, with the prop in the right place, but...
Yeah, that reminds me on the motor mount from the Stealth Wings planes. Like the like the silent mount for the Stealth Ring spec ring. It has a similar shape.
Yeah.
Is that a point of weakness, though?
I don't think so. I mean, I have no idea what kind of reinforcement are in that part. I hope that's not just foam with a glued-on motor mount. But if I remember correctly, I have to watch the video from Painless 360 again. I think it has a plastic motor mount and not a wood one. So it should be much stronger than on the old R-Ring, hopefully. But yeah, I have to look into that. I have no information yet.
I just realized at some point the chat in the stream was broken. There's been lots of chat going on that I've been watching the stream to see the chat that I just haven't been seeing.
Yeah, I have fixed it. I had to refresh it for some reason. The people have already pointed me on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to go back and read, I guess.
So we're looking at also the profile of the plane. You can kind of see like how it's the geometry is different than from the old AR 900. It seems to be more of like more of a perfect triangle, and then the old one was kind of it was swept a little bit, not as steep, and you had like a bump in the center for the nose, for the blunt nose.
Yeah, see, I really like the shape. I like how sleek it is. Sort of reminds me of a Stingray crossed with a B2. It's a really cool shape.
Yeah, it is amazing looking. Okay. They also pointed out they sold 35,000 units of this plane. And what was interesting is like last week they sold out in the first batch in a day. You know, you have a lot of times the industry now waits for put its plane out, and they get the vloggers to hype it up a bit so that they can try to sell out the first batch. Even during the time of COVID, even in the time of uncertain money, you know, you had 500 people come up with the money to buy this plane in a period of a day.
Hey,
so,
don't forget we have build month, and we have
winter.
winter.
That's right.
And we have winter days, so anyone wants to have something they can build over the winter. I mean, you have seen my post in the group when I asked what the people will do over the winter. Half of the posts were just building stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Darren, can you go back to the picture from the button? Is the CG mark visible there?
I can't see it on the render. There is obviously one on there, but no, you can just see the screws that hold the wings in.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Because I was wondering if the CG mark is exactly at the battery spot or very close to the battery spot, because that would be great. So you are not tied to a specific battery rate to get the CG right. You can just swap heavier and lighter batteries as you want. That will be very interesting if they did it that way.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest though, you've got the front area, which it does look like it's maybe a little bit too far forward of the CG, but then you've got the rest of that huge bay, which you can fill up with whatever batteries you want. Just put the flight controller in the back hatch. So there's plenty of options there. Yeah,
I will put my flight controller anyway in the front compartment, just all the way back. because my VTX will go into one side. The HD cam, I want to put a RunCam hybrid maybe in there, into the other side. The GPS in the back, for example. So there's just the flight controller in the main compartment. So it should be pretty clean then. Oh, speaking of compartments, that's also a very good point. What I like is that they give us the option to have either everything in the fuselage compartment or to put stuff in the rings. But the only thing I know, Darren, you also don't like is they just use 6 pins.
Yes. Like you said, having the option is brilliant, but 6 connectors just don't really cut it these days. I mean, I even made that comment when, I think, was it the Dart XL or the Talon GT that was first, and they had the same connector. And even back then I was thinking, well, it's not really enough, especially when you got companies like Finwing, and they can put 9 pins plus 2 power pins for an ESC in a single small connector.
Okay, so you're comparing this to the Alba Bird then?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just saying that they've come up with a really clean, good connector for joining the wings, and they've had to put an ESC in there as well. So to put 9 pins on just a standard wing connector is not really a huge deal.
Well,
but it would have made this model so much better, because then you can have, someone mentioned you can have Crossfire with Mavlink, and obviously the VTX side, you can have audio, you can have smart audio, you can send your power 5-volt back to power your camera. It just gives you a lot more options when there are more pins.
What you're saying then is you want to put the VTX out on the wing, not have it in the compartment.
Me personally, I always like to go for maximum separation. So yeah, I'd put the receiver in one wing, the VTX in the other wing. Yeah, but that's just me. Other people do different.
Yeah, after my experience with the Talon GT and the VTX in the ring, and then death rolling always because the left ring was heavier than the right ring, in the future I would avoid that for myself.
You can just balance the wings afterwards, though, just like you balance your CG. Really, you do a lateral and a longitudinal balance.
Yes, that's what I did at the end to fix it, and now it just starts very smoothly, but still that adds 15 grams extra weight on the other ring, so it's still dead weight you have to use.
It really adds 15 grams.
I have a AKK FX2 with heatsink and a Pagoda antenna on there.
Yeah, that's the same that I have on. Oh, you can't see it. The same that I have on this plane. It's got an FX2 out on that wing and an R9 Slim Plus out on that wing, and it almost balances out fine as it is.
Interesting, because I have an R9 Slim on the right wing on my Talon GT too, but it still needed 15 grams completely out in the ring tip to balance out completely.
Okay, interesting. Maybe it was a bit off balance to start with to you on yours, or equally maybe mine was a bit off balance to start with the other way.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, I'm just looking for a portion of the video from Painter 360, because Corey Perez mentioned in the chat that at 2:15 there is a good shot of the CG marks. Oh yeah, the CG marks are exactly where the screws are. Pretty much exactly at the same position.
Oh, it's cool. We can't see it in the video.
Wait a second. I can just share my screen. That's no problem. So, I can share it in the stream right now. So here are the CG marks, and they are basically in line with the screws. So we can just use the picture Darren showed us to estimate. So yeah, the battery just seems to be slightly in front of the CG marks. It should be easy to balance.
I was just looking at the screws in the wings there. So it's pretty much where the Sonic model logo is.
Yeah.
On the hatch. So the battery will be forward. But then the motor's quite far back as well with that scooped motor mount. So it's probably a good thing for balance to have it slightly forward.
Yeah.
So a Sonic model had spoken to us first. Then there would be a 9-pin D connector on this plane.
Well, they should have put that up, shouldn't they, when they were chatting with us? Way back, was it March or April?
Yeah. They did a lot of talking. Yeah, we were talking to a guy who no longer works there, and we were supposed to have a conversation with him, and it was like these guys woke up at like 7 in the morning, and it was like midnight for me, and this guy from Sonic Model, who's no longer there, just talked the entire time.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, I mean, we talked about the pin connectors. Yes, of course, if you use a VTX with smart audio, you will have one pin two less. Is that correct? You're missing one pin, so you have to share ground with the servo if you want to use the connector. It's even worse if you have if you use Crossfire, because Crossfire just needs 4 pins no matter what. You also have to share at least. So you also have to share ground with the servo. Maybe that can introduce noise into the servo if you use Crossfire, or you get servo noise into your video and vice versa. Yeah, trying and seeing how it goes, I would say, because on my older on my AR rings, I have the issue that I have servo jittering with the R9. I have to be very carefully where I place the antennas. Luckily, on the ZO HD servos, the Metal Gear servos on the Talon GT, I don't have that problem. And my guess is that they use the same servos here. The same 9 gram in... 9 gram servos that are actually 12 gram servos, most likely.
Yeah. 12 or 13 if they're Metal Gear, what it?
So Darren, you got the screen back?
Yeah, well, I don't think I can lose it. Mark's pinned me up there.
yeah. So his view is fixed now in the stream.
So there we have the standard hatch if you don't run DJI, which brought up another point that I made in my video about the airflow. Is and Luke actually corrected me on, so thank you for that, Luke. Yeah. Is that you've got this massive hatch on the front. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's a massive hatch on the front, or hole on the front, but you're only limited by the air that's coming out of these 2 holes at the back, because the outlets need to be 20% larger than the inlets to get adequate or efficient cooling. So all these airflow or air holes look brilliant, but you're only getting that much airflow in these, and this much airflow through the main fuselage part. So
is that enough for the side for a VTX, the side pockets there?
I'd imagine it'd be plenty. But my slight concern was that actually someone pulled me up on. I suggested that there's quite a bit of air in on the main body, but very little air out. So it could build up positive pressure inside. And depending on the magnets, it could pop them off. But, you know, I thought it was only fair to say it might happen. I mean, Sonic Model usually use decent magnets, so it probably won't. But if I didn't at least mention it,
I also have no concerns that it may blow off the hatch. My biggest concern is just the pressure difference messing up with the barometer. Because
there is that too, yeah.
Today I was flying with that Bushwhacker, this flight test plane, just a small round, and the plane was climbing for maybe 10 or 15 seconds until it leveled out, and the barometer actually showed me an altitude. It was always on 1 or 2 meters altitude until it was in reality at 20 or 30 meters high, because that airplane has a big square nose or rectangle nose that's completely open from at the front, and there's no air outlet. So all the air from the prop and from the flight itself pushes into the nose and raises the pressure inside the fuselage, and that can be a massive issue with the barometer. So we have to really look how that goes in reality then.
Actually, sorry, Steve. That actually brings up a really nice point about that Maytech H board. They've actually put a foam pad onto the baseboard, so that when you put it together, it actually covers the barometer. So that was a nice little touch.
Yeah, but that only...
That won't help the pressure differential Marc's on about, though.
Yes.
It'll help buffeting and stuff, but so it's definitely useful, but not for this exact situation.
What would be nice here is the new flight controller generation from Maytag with the F765. No, with the H743, I think. And the CAN bus and also the MSP bus system. And then they have this GPS and the airspeed sensor that also uses the MSP bus in the chain. So you basically can put the GPS module in one of the side compartments, where you have no pressure issue.
Okay, we're coming down to like the last 10 minutes of the show here. So I wanted to ask you guys a few questions before we wrap this up. As far as I was asking about the most ideal flight controller, and you just said it was probably the 743 then, right? The H743?
Yes.
For this.
That one has a built-in barometer, of course, but you have also a barometer in the new GPS modules from Maytag. So you can use a different one in a different location. That's pretty handy.
What flight packs would you use? Was that that Zode flight pack, the lithium ion?
I think it won't fit, because they showed a picture with the ZOHD 18650 4S2P pack that fits just barely in, and I have a 21700, so it's about 1 to 1.5 centimeters longer, and I think it won't fit. I have to look if it fits then, but it will be a tight one.
They recommend a 4S2P lithium-ion battery, an 18650 pack. So that would be 16.8 volt, 7,000 milliamp hour or whatever.
Okay, and then the best motor, Mark alluded to this earlier, was the Air A, I think it was.
Air B motor. That's in my high performance setup. Yeah.
Okay, Air B motor.
But I think the T motor I mentioned, the 2317, will be a better choice on a pusher because it doesn't get that hot at the same power level.
And then what prop size would you use for that?
8 to 9 inch.
8 to 9 inch. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the question is, would you laminate this plane?
Nope. I never laminate my foam wings. I mean, it depends how the surface is. On the AR wing, on the old one, you have all these little nipples from the foam molding. You have to cut away to get a smooth surface. So that's the reason why I've laminated my long range AR wing, at least with sticky laminate. But if the surface on that one will be smooth enough, then I won't laminate it.
What do you say, Darren? Would you laminate this plane?
It depends on how lazy I'm feeling, to be honest. I mean, Glenn made a comment about getting up to 220 kilometers an hour, but I think if you laminate it, you can smash that because it adds a lot of strength in there. But I'm just looking at this picture here, and you can actually see the motor mount goes back inside the plane a fair way, and it also has a vertical support as well. So I think that motor is going to be quite well supported.
Perfect. I love the sound of that. Okay, so Luke, do you have any thoughts on lamination?
I've never done the lamination that most people refer to, where you take like the folder laminating stuff, whatever it is. But I have done a lot of lamination on Depron foam with more traditional hobby laminates like Aura cover and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't do an Aura cover kind of covering on it, but maybe one of the newer laminates would be good on it. Don't know.
Okay, and then we talked about where to put the VTX, and so Darren said that he wants to put his in the wing. He had the issues with the 6 connector versus the 9 connector, and so we've talked about that, and he said there's enough airflow on the side pockets for a VTX, especially upwards of what those AKK, like the ones that get up to 2 watts.
They've got a 3 watt now.
Yeah, I think you could put just about anything in those side pods. They look like they've got loads of airflow. My biggest problem with the side pods is that they're not really side pods. They're still kind of center pods. I'd really want them a bit further out on the wings, but I guess it's better than nothing.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I mean, it does sort of lead to the question: couldn't you have just made the main hatch bigger?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd really prefer, if you're going to have side pods, to put a VTX and a receiver in, that you have them right out on the wingtips. But there we go.
yeah, okay. I agree with you.
Davey or FPV brought up a good point. Maybe we could even place the flight controller in one of the side compartments.
Oh, don't like that.
No.
I mean, it's possible, and the offset from the center shouldn't mess too much with the accelerometer, I think.
Okay.
It shouldn't, and certainly in practice it probably won't. But it's just doing things correctly, you know. CG is the best place for a flight controller.
Yes, of course it is. But yeah, at least without modification, we got a good pressure reading, hopefully.
Just because I saw something from Davey Orr, I gave quite a long explanation to Darren about how different inlet versus outlet surface areas and that kind of thing affects system drag for the cooling system and that kind of thing. But to condense it down, the difference between having a 1-to-1 ratio between outlet size and inlet size versus a 20% bigger outlet, which is what you should have, and what 70% outlet size, which is what this seems to have, is probably only around at most 10%, and that's only for the cooling system drag, not even for the whole plane drag. So it's probably not too big of a problem. So as long as you've got adequate airflow, which it seems like I have loads of, it's probably not too big of a deal.
I just measured the F405 wing, and that wouldn't fit in that bay, so it'd have to be a WSE, F411 WSE.
Or maybe a wing, maybe a 4-on-1 wing, yeah.
But
that might fit. That might just fit.
That's not an option for a long-range wing, I would say.
So, Luke, you can have 2 flight controllers on here, one for each side of the plane.
Yeah, you joke, I've done it.
It'll be our plane on one side and INAV on the other.
Oh dear.
I'll have to talk about my plane a bit more, where I have half the plane set up to be controlled by the flight controller and half is completely manual pass-through. Might be a fun topic at some point.
Yeah,
I forgot we started about 10 minutes late, so we still have a little bit more time. What is missing from this plane, you guys think?
A better nose cover or nose protection for cameras. That's my biggest concern.
Okay.
For me personally.
9-pin connectors in the wings.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about sharing the ground with the servo, so well, it's shared anyway on the flight controller.
To be honest, though, on the basic info that we have, it does look like it's going to be a pretty decent plane. I mean, the fact, it looks like it comes with decent gear as well. Just the ball links on the servo horns is just nice quality stuff. So
that was the question I wanted to ask you. Okay, so we're going to get this question right away. Hi, I'm brand new to INAV. I want to get my first wing. I'm looking at the AR Wing Pro and the AR Wing 900. Which one should I get?
The Bixler.
Not the AR Pro.
Okay, why?
I mean, in my opinion, by looking at the pictures, I need to have it in my hand to really judge. But I think the old AR wing will be more robust, especially in crashes or hard landings. And Sonic model itself, they say that the AR Wing Pro is not that forgivable on flight errors. Like a stall mid-air, it will much faster lose altitude than the old AR Wing.
So yeah, the idea was the AR Wing 900 was kind of sold. It came with comes with a kind of crappy Racer Star motor. I think it's a 2204, 2300 kV. And the idea behind that was like, we can tell a quad guy, hey, you got most of the stuff already. If you don't like the motor, take one of the motors from one of your crash quads out and put it in there. You probably have something better sitting around. Use that. You can put 4S at least on the Racer Star and get flying, and that's going to still come in at about 600, 700 grams, if not lighter. But when you get into something like this, and we're getting a few too many people joining the group who are, you know, starting off with some really large planes. Like one guy started off with that 2400 millimeter. Which one was that? The Phoenix.
Oh, the Ranger.
Yeah, the Ranger. Oh, yeah. Takes it up on his maiden flight and puts it into a flight mode. Doesn't quite have things worked out yet and crashes it. So when I look at a plane like this, if you come off with a plane like this, I'm really worried about people loading this thing up to over 1 kilogram when they don't really have things figured out. And so are you guys in agreement that the AR900 is still the best beginner wing to start off with?
No, the AR900 was never the best one in the first place, the Bixler.
Yeah, the big, for beginners, don't get a wing. It's as simple as that. Get a plane and then get a wing. I understand the attraction to it, but you can do so much more with a plane. It's more forgivable. You can do it line of sight easier if you want to learn that, which people should learn. So it's easier for I've forgotten the word now.
Orientation.
Orientation. Thank you, Luke. Yes, much easier for orientation. You can put FPV on it, and you can fly them like an absolute lunatic, as Andrew Bolton quite often proves. And he goes through, he pretty much has a new Bixler 2 every year, if not 2, because he flies the hell out of them. So yeah, they're not boring planes. And then, but once you're happy with a bit, something like that, go for a wing. But then probably VAR is a decent contender.
I was going to say that, we have these two guys here, Mark and Darren, who both have really fantastic channels when it comes to making videos. And Mark gives a lot of his information out in German, because there's not a lot of content in German. And Darren gives his out in perfect Queen's English. And so I decided, I can't compete with these two guys because they got pretty much all INAV figured out. But at one point, I did write this manual about the AR Wing 900, and it was kind of like, here's how you set it up. I even gave you all the, I gave you a dump or a diff. I don't know if it was a diff or a dump file for it, but it was from the 2.4 version days. And a lot of people used it. So what I decided to do was create that for the Bixler 2. So we happen to be talking about the Bixler 2. Fantastic plane. I am just finished maidening the Bixler 2. I built it. I've been photographing along the way. I'm going to get it all sorted out. And the document is about three-quarters done right now, I would say. So there's going to be a build guide for putting together a Bixler 2 with INAV. And that should be coming out here in the next month.
Yep, but still keep in mind that if you get a plane like a Bixler 2 or a Ranger or whatever with a very big wingspan, it is not as easy to tune like a small plane. You still have the issue, especially navigation modes. Navigation modes will often freak out on big wingspan planes on INAV.
I would very much argue, though, that your first INAV plane, you shouldn't really be bothering with. You shouldn't even really be bothering with the GPS. Just learn how to fly it first in manual mode, maybe move up to Acro, and then you can start worrying about GPS assisted modes and that kind of thing.
Yes, but still, if you have learned how to fly it, you can fly line of sight, you can fly it FPV, you know how to land, you know how to launch. Even if you then switch to INAV and you want to test return to home, you will fall into that trap. And if you are just new with INAV, this could be a pretty big hassle.
The one thing I'll say about the Bixler 2 that's a big down point for the Bixler 2 is that it has a weird way that they mount the servos for the rudder and the elevator. They go on the side of the fuselage and they go inside, and you can never get to them again realistically. I mean, you can reach in there and kind of grab them a little bit, but it is a mess to get in there. So if you're going to do that, you really need to get Metal Gear servos, and you really need to make sure that they're tuned to 1500. and get things figured out before you start putting this together. Otherwise, it'll be a nightmare to set the thing up correctly, at the very least. So yeah, I'm at the full guide. I don't know. I took this thing out. I decided to build it so that it has this little. There's not going to be a dock on it. It's designed to use the canopy. Took it out. First flight was perfect. Loved it. So, but yeah, it is. The Bixlers are harder to get the auto trim down, and once you get the auto trim down, then you get the auto tune. So it is. It's a lovely plane. But what I did mention in the guide also is that if you are out for speed, then you really need to get a Stratos Surfer. It's about $100 more for the nearly identical plane, but that has flat wings. The Bixler 2 has dihedral in the tips, so that it kind of is a bit self-righting, which I'm sure doesn't really work well with the INAV. But it really is. It's designed for, you know, a beginner, and it is a wonderful plane. It just flies so beautifully. You'll never get tired of it.
Just to throw something in, I mean, you are also always talking about planes with 1m40, 1m60, or 2 meters wingspan. I'm still not sure if these are the right beginner's plane, even to learn flying line of sight. So just to throw it into the ring at this point, my absolute go-to for a total RC flying beginner is still the Drift, because this plane. At least if you limit the throw on pitch a little bit and use a lot of expo on pitch, for example, especially, this plane is so easy to fly. It's so forgivable. It's impossible to stall it. I mean, you may have seen my review video of that plane where it freaked out on pitch because I had no flight controller in there, nothing, and I had too much throw on the elevator. It was really hard to control at this point, and it was pretty windy that day. But in my opinion, you just put a flight controller in there if you want. You don't need to. You just use the airplane preset, and it flies just out of the box really well. And it's cheap. It's cheap, it's small, and it's detachable.
I'm wondering why not have a bigger plane for learning to fly?
Because bigger planes have a very high rate compared to their rigidity. And if you crash, you have much more damage. This plane, this Drift, I have hit a tree with the ring. I stuck it into a bush where I had to climb and rip it out. And I had 1 or 2 pretty rough landings because I forgot to connect the elevator. It has nothing, not even a scratch. And that's the point, because it's very lightweight. It doesn't get damaged on a crash very easy. And that's the point.
The downside to that, though, is the wind. So maybe it'd be interesting to see how the Razor performs, because that looks like it's very much a relative to the Drift.
Yes,
I mean, like a traditional line of sight trainer plane weighs, 1.5 to 3 kilos. That's, it would have a 1.5 to 2 meter wingspan. Like the plane that I learned to fly on was a Watt 4. A balsa plane that had a big electric motor, 1.5 meter wingspan, and that's what for a long time people have learned. Obviously, I can see the advantage of having a plane that doesn't get damaged and that kind of thing. But with a Bixler, it's quite durable as well.
You want to know?
The good thing about the Bixler is that the Bixler, if you break a wing, they're like, the set of wings are $20 and the fuselage is like $18, and you can order that from Hobby King and have it show up pretty quickly.
Yeah. You want to know what I learned to fly on? It was a 3D printed Spitfire, and my first RC.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
My first RC model flight ever in my whole life. It's on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I saw it. You had the ailerons reversed.
Was with reversed ailerons, and I was able to keep it in the air for about 40 seconds.
This is our technical director.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a rough start into the hobby.
So, any more comments in the chat before we go here?
Jack the Aviator, I don't agree with that. I use a flight test Explorer with a F405 and all the features to teach. I get them in the air and put it in horizon mode, let them get used to orientation. Yeah, these flight test planes, foam board planes, whatever, it's also a good choice. They are very rigid, easy to build, and cheap AF. So,
cheap as chips.
Yep. Corey Perez, I started with an apprentice and simulator, and few hours in the sim. The apprentice was almost exactly like the sim. It was a joy to fly. I don't know that plane.
It's
the apprentice is
E-Flight. It's about 1.4, 1.5 meter wingspan, safe system. So that's ideal.
Very similar to what I learned to fly on.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
the idea behind that is you can go to Great Flights. They have the real plane, and they have the exact simulator for that plane. The apprentice in there, and I think real flight 8 or 9. And you learn how to fly on that, and you go in the real world. The thing flies almost identical. Plus, it has safe so that it can kind of. You don't have to have very much skill to land the plane. It just kind of drifts down by itself.
It's like the safe in I've got a tiny little cub type thing. It will land itself. You just hold the button down, it lands itself, and it will take off itself as well. So it's a really, I mean, when flight crap. I was just going to say flight crap. When flight test when flight test first did the
we love Josh Bixler.
They called it the old crap switch, because if you got in trouble, you just flick it, it rights itself. It's very similar to what you could do with INAV. You put it in manual, let them fly it in manual, and if there's trouble, flick it to angle.
The problem with INAV and doing that is if you're on your own and learning to fly, you have to know how to set up INAV first, not just that, but then you have to go straight into your first flight hoping that it's all set up correctly and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
that's true, yeah.
By the way, that's why ZOHD released the Copilot Lite. I mean, I've set up my first Copilot recently, a few weeks ago. Yeah, I know you hate it. But I have set it up recently for a friend who just also bought the Drift. It was I was really impressed how well that thing flew. I just guessed a little bit with the gain in angle mode, so I just shaked a little bit. I looked, okay, it's going up that far. It should be fine. We launched it, and the plane flew like on a rails. That was really I was really impressed how well it handles the plane.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's what the Copilot is made for.
Yeah.
It's not made for the real and serious FPV. It's made for learning to fly.
Yeah.
And just as a safety aid.
Copilot.
So, exactly. It's a good name for it.
Sorry, Darren, are we serious FPV pilots? Is that what you're saying?
We're terrible. We're the worst FPV pilots on the planet.
Okay, don't go into that topic again. By the way, there's another point that just came up. Jack the Aviator wrote in the chat: the Drift will stay in the air with damn near no thrust. That's absolutely true, and that's a good point, because what I always recommend is not to get a glider, a real glider plane as a first plane, because it will be impossible to land for a beginner. If you have a glider, they don't slow down. That's the problem. These gliders fly forever, and the beginner does not know how to handle crow braking or how to fly really flat above the ground before the touchdown. Everything. It can be really hard for a beginner to land an actually glider plane.
Do you consider a Radian a glider as well?
See, the Radian is a glider, and I think that's a really good trainer plane. I taught my brother to fly on a Radian, and it's, apart from the landing, what you say about the landing having to, do all that quite precise.
Yes.
It's such a great plane. It self-levels really well. It's not too powerful. It, climbs when you apply power, all the things you want for a trainer plane.
Absolutely. And now it comes with safe.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, it does, yeah. The Night Radian.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I have a friend, the same guy, by the way, who bought the Drift with the Copilot. He flew a Radian before. He's also a beginner in RC model flying, and he has the exact issue. Sometimes he needs to go around 3 or 4 times until he can really touch down. Our flying field is about, it's a big meadow. We have trees behind us, so he can use the whole meadow in that direction. And it's about maybe 150 meters wide and 300 meters long from our perspective.
Huge.
But the problem is he can't land into our direction, because then he can't go around because of the trees behind us. He can only land sideways. And really, this 100 or 150 meter landing area is sometimes not enough to slow the plane down, even if you do a low pass. It's really hard to get it down sometimes. Or he has to really press it down, but then he risks damage.
Is it in high winds or something?
No, without winds. With winds is easy, because then
With
he
winds
just
it's better.
yeah, then he just lands against the wind, and that will shorten the landing area a lot.
Because that radiant just turns like on a dime. You can keep turning it around and around and around until you finally lose altitude.
Yeah, you can do that, but it also has a very wide turn radius, so you cannot make really tight turns. You have no aileron. You only have the rudder.
Xavier Forger said, I'm a rudder elevator plane is the best trainer, and I completely agree. It's why I taught my brother to fly on the Radian. It self-levels, it's so much simpler. Obviously, that's line of sight. For FPV, a rudder elevator plane isn't quite so fun or intuitive, but yeah.
Yeah, I've gone through and rebuilt Radians because the motors that come with them are just not that great, and they're just... So it's a great plane if you go do all aftermarket mods on it, and it's still, I think, one of the best line of sight flying planes.
Like an EDF, that sort of aftermarket mod. I think that's what we're just going to get.
Here we go. Here comes check this out. Check this out. So what this is not? It's not a Radian.
It was.
I think they can see me. Yeah, this is my current Radian. You know, it's got a V-tail, EDF, nothing like a normal Radian. That's the electronics hanging out of it from the last time.
That was a Radian at one point?
Yeah, this is... Well, actually, nothing here is a Radian. The only part of this Radian now is the wings, which aren't actually here. They're up there, so...
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You win the contest for most Radian mod ever.
Well, yeah, I've had 4 Radians now, I think, so... Depending on what you call a new Radian.
Okay, so this hot Radian talk today was brought to you by Wing Talk. Thank you so much. I want to thank our sponsor today, which is...
we have sponsors? I have not seen any money yet.
You have not seen
The Sonic model the amount we play.
Today's sponsor is Crocs. When you want to spend $50 on a pair of rubber shoes, Crocs are for you. So, guys, thank you so much. We had a great time. I think they're giddy now. We've talked so much up the UK. You guys have to go to bed soon, so really want to thank you for your input. All around, we're excited about the AR Wing Pro, right?
Yep, definitely.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Join us again some point in the future here for the next episode 13 of Wing Talk.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Okay, stream ended.